Can you guys hear me? Ah. Testing. Someone just said my audio wasn't working. This is not working. That's probably why. All right, so let me redo that again. I wasted like a minute of doing that. So, good afternoon, everybody. It is David Schlotthauer here in the home weather office with your tropical weather live stream outlook forecast here for Thursday, July the 3rd, 2025. I hope you all are having a great, awesome pre-4th of July, because tomorrow is Independence Day, celebrating our country, of course, of its longevity. So in this live stream, of course, we are going to be talking about this little area of disturbed weather off the Carolina coast, off of Florida. That has a very likelihood of becoming our next named storm, which would be Tropical Storm Chantel, otherwise just a tropical depression. But either way, there's going to be a lot of rain with that. And then, of course, we are going to be looking at climatology out here in the main development region. All right. So because I wasted a lot of time, let's just get right into things. By the way, if you guys are new here and you do like the live stream coverage, live streams overall, videos, and much more on the channel, please subscribe. It really does help out a lot, because without your guys' diligent, awesome support, I wouldn't be here doing this as of today. So please share, like, and subscribe, and chat with us, because we're going to get to your questions here for the second half of the stream. So looking at the Saharan era analysis here, of course, we have a lot of dust, a lot of dry air that is coming off of Africa. And this has been the more machine over since the start of hurricane season. We have not had any MDR development other than last year, where we did have what was Beryl, was located somewhere over here at this given time of last year. And then it was on its way into the Yucatan Peninsula, and then it kind of turned off and did that. So yeah, last year at this time, we were tracking very serious Hurricane Beryl, one of the earliest, or the earliest, most intense Category 5 hurricane ever in the Caribbean, very early in the hurricane season last year. Versus this year, it is completely different. Yep, completely different. Too much dust, too much stable air, too much warm air aloft, and it's dry. And you can even see the stratocumulus here, an indication that the air mass here is pretty dry. Let's take a look now at our vorticity plot here, because yeah, let's kind of see what we got going on as of the 21Z time frame. We have this decaying cold front, this frontal boundary that is now fully off the eastern seaboard, the mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast. It is still striving itself across central Florida, where we have that vorticity, where we have relative spin in the atmosphere at about 5,000 feet above the surface. And it's this future that you see on your screen that is going to be our hallmark of tropical development. Yeah, it's nothing coming off the African continent that we're watching. Instead, it's right in front of your backyard, or right out your front. I could reword that. Right outside in your backyard is where we're seeing the development. It's all right here. There is what is left with Flossie. We are going to get our next named storm here. This is going to be Gil. That is in the Eastern Pacific. So that's going to be one of the more intense hurricanes, perhaps. But this is all really going to stay way far off the Mexican coast. So we won't be tracking that system at all, since it's not going to bother anyone. Then, of course, a lot of vorticity out here off of Africa, but of course, there's so much dry air. It's too stable and warm to support any tropical development. And that's going to be the theme going forward, probably now through the end of July. I wouldn't be surprised now if we go through most of July with not any MDR development, but we'll see. Probably the second half or maybe even the middle of July. Still thinking there's a narrow window of opportunity of that happening. So looking at the deep layer vertical wind shear, you can see, let's update this. And we can see all of this red here on your screen indicates there is a lot of strong upper level winds here on the order of about 30 to 40 knots. Nothing as strong as what we had 2 weeks ago when we were inching close to 60 to 70 knots. So the wind shear here has definitely decreased, but still strong enough to keep red colors, which deem that as unfavorable. We have fairly favorable conditions right here where that frontal boundary is, with very light wind shear values. Just to the north, though, we have a lot of deep layer vertical wind shear, and to the south, where we have actually northeasterly vertical wind shear of around 20 to 30 knots. So yeah, there's a very narrow window here where this thing could actually develop off the Florida coast, where our vertical wind shear is generally under 15 knots. And we'll just see how much that takes an advantage for our system down here to form. All right. So with that being said, this is what the NHC is telling us about this. This is going to update, by the way, in the next hour and 20 minutes. So we will give you a new update once we get new information. But as of right now, the National Hurricane Center gives us a 60% chance of tropical development, and you can see it right here. My mouse keeps on moving away from me. So an area of low pressure is forecast to develop along a weakening frontal boundary near Florida or the Atlantic coast of the southeastern United States on Friday or Saturday. So again, 4th of July and 4th of July weekend. Environmental conditions appear only marginally conducive for some slow development, but a tropical storm or subtropical depression could form in this region over the weekend into early next week, while the system drifts northward or south or northeastward. Regardless of development, heavy rainfall is possible across portions of the United States, particularly across the west central Florida coast. An Air Force Hurricane Hunter mission is scheduled to investigate the system if necessary, and that would be for Friday. So, yeah, we're even bringing out recon aircraft onto the system for tomorrow because of how high the chances are for tropical development. All right, and there's that orange area. This means that there's a medium chance, a medium to high chance, because I guarantee you, by tonight, it's probably going to be up to 70%, which is considered high in the NHC's eyeballs. All right. Now, let's take a look at our models here. Let's go over to, where are we at? There we go. Go over to tropical tidbits, because we do want to take a look at what we have here. And we just got our 18Z model run in, which is newly rendered. And as we play this forward over the next 12 hours, we can see that a ball of energy right here. See that disturbance in the low levels? That's vorticity. That is spin at 5,000 feet above the surface. And this is my favorite level of the atmosphere, because this is where we can discern 3 different plots. All right. So, of course, the first plot is the color shading. That's how much spin there is. And then your wind barbs tell us which way the wind is blowing from and how strong it is. So this is some nice, good trade winds through here out of the east-southeast and the southeasterly direction. Not as strong as what we had before in the Caribbean, but still strong enough to at least keep the deep layer vertical wind shear going. And then here's another little wave of vorticity right here, little weak tropical wave that's going to come into view here. That's the same tropical wave, by the way, that has moved off of Africa. So putting this into motion, you can see there is our area of disturbed weather off the Carolina coast for Sunday. And this is going to continue to be a thing all the way into Tuesday. Then look what happens. It just kind of wants to hang around. And the thing about this is we have another ridge of high pressure that builds, that folds over. So a ridge here and another ridge over here. And so this thing is going to be squashed in between. The thing about this is where a lot of uncertainty will exist. Does this break off even more and retrograde and come underneath that ridge and then move into the Gulf? Or will all this energy be able to escape northeastward because this ridge is not strong enough to tuck this underneath? That is what we're going to be waiting for to see on what all happens, because this is going to stall out. It's just going to be sitting down there. And the longer this sits, the better the chances that this could actually end up developing into something such as a tropical depression or a storm. And again, Chantal would be our next named storm, our letter C, our third named storm before the 17th, which is on average our second named storm that forms up there in the deep tropics. And then this only goes out to about 10 days because this is the 18Z GFS. Then still some disturbing weather down there, but nothing like what we will be seeing over the next day or so. And then looking out here in the deep tropics, nothing to be concerned about for the 12th and the 13th. Now, of course, let's take a look at the European model because we have two other models that we need to look at here. So looking at the same parameter, actually 12Z came in on the Euro. So let's move that and put that into motion. And you can see definitely a signal here from the model that it's picking up on that vorticity, and that moves onshore and then it moves out. So it doesn't get trapped like the GFS shows on its 18Z counterpart, and that moves out. And then nothing really sinister other than maybe another subtropical system way down the road. And that's kind of where we're at, with the tropics. I don't see anything coming off of Africa that develops significantly right now. However, there is a tropical wave here that the European model is picking up in about 10 days. And you never know. You just don't want to turn your eyes off of these little guys, these tropical waves, because these could develop over here in the Western Caribbean or even in the Gulf if the ridge is weak enough and the system is able to curve out like that or curve out like that, in other words. Or simply if the ridge is too strong, this gets into the Eastern Pacific like we've been seeing lately, where these systems just want to develop over in that basin. But rest assured you, things will be changing as we go into the month of, or into late July into August. So that's a European model. Let's take a look now at our artificial intelligence model here, because we want to show you this, because again, it is also showing something very similar. So definitely all global models are picking up on this. So there is a very likelihood that this is going to become a subtropical depression or a subtropical storm. And if there's enough tropical DNA with it, then it could just simply be tropical. But I don't see that happening because it is with an upper level disturbance. So making that subtropical instead. But either way, it doesn't matter. There's going to be impacts with that. And you can see the AI model. This is the 12Z output of that model. And let's go further out in time. And there's nothing concerning out here in the MDR just yet. And last but not least, let's look at our Canadian model, because it is showing something pretty similar, but only it's more broader. And there's a little bit more concentration here in the northeastern Gulf, instead up here where there's still about the same amount of concentration. And this lobe of energy is a lot broader and larger than what the Euro and the GFS indicated. So there's a teeny bit of uncertainty on exactly where this will concentrate, but wherever it does, if it remains offshore long enough where water temperatures are extremely warm in this area, this could develop pretty significantly into a tropical storm with winds that are about 40 miles an hour. So now that we took a look at our vorticity plot, let's actually take a look here at your rainfall radar forecast. Okay, because this is going to bring in a lot of moisture, especially over Florida. Okay, because that's where the energy is just kind of parked about. So lots of showers, lots of thunderstorms. That's what you're pretty much seeing today, and that's going to be the theme tomorrow. So, or fireworks. So Looks like northern Florida should see some nice dry conditions. In fact, let's take a look at our HRRR on that because a lot of you are probably curious about that. Yeah, and so you can see showers and thunderstorms pop up, and then it looks like tomorrow evening for the fireworks looks pretty good overall. So nothing to be concerned about. But down here in Sarasota, you have some pretty significant showers and thunderstorms that will be popping up tomorrow afternoon. And that is what we are watching closely for. And that's why I think fireworks down there will likely be more than likely canceled. Now I just figured that I would show you all this. So this look at the 850 millibar chart, and you can even see here on the HER run showing even tropical storm force winds on this, and you can see how broad it is. Even at the surface, by the way, those are winds in knots. So that is about 36 knots. So that is tropical storm intensity. So I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes, again, a subtropical storm with pressures that do support that down to about 1006 millibars. Okay. But regardless of tropical development, this is going to be a storm that's not going to leave anyone alone anytime soon. And that's why we're doing a live stream on this. So how much rainfall will this system bring? Let's take a look at that right now. And you can see over here in Florida, an additional, actually, let's back this out a little bit because this is literally going to be in the short term more than the long term. So rainfall totals here pretty much through the 4th of July weekend. Another additional 2 to 3 inches of rainfall expected over Tampa, Florida, as well as Jacksonville, Florida. If you are in Daytona Beach, as well as if you are down there in Sarasota, you're looking at an additional 1 to 3 inches of rainfall. And then there's a big gradient here where there's going to be a lot of rain and where there's not going to be a lot of rain. And it really will depend on that track where this disturbance is going to be moving toward. If it's going to be moving more north and more inland and it kind of grazes the coast, you're going to get more significant rainfall further inland than if it were to stay further offshore. So in this case, the WPC, which stands for Weather Prediction Center, predicts anywhere between 1 to 2 inches of rain along the Carolina coast, such as Wilmington, North Carolina. If you are in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, just keep that in mind. We're looking at pretty good rainfall out of this, with rainfall totals dramatically decreasing with inland extent, especially over central North and South Carolina into central Georgia. You're only looking at about maybe about 1/100 of an inch to 5/100 of an inch of rainfall through the next 3 days. But of course, you'll see more rain beyond that overall. Once we get more weather systems that come in out of the north, you end up getting more rain overall. But just the tropical system alone, anywhere between 1 to 3 inches along the Carolina coast, which is enough to cause some flooding. And it's not just that. There is also going to be some high surf as well. I'm pretty concerned about this one. It's not just about the rain. It's not just about the wind. People think, oh, it's all about the wind. That's the main impact of a tropical system, right? Nope, it's not. You thought wrong if you guessed it. There's usually more than one impact, okay? Surf is one of them. Lots of heavy rain is one of them, and the wind, okay? And so we have a lot of surf that is going to be dealt with here along the Carolina coast, Georgia, and even portions of Florida. This is the maximum individual wave height, okay? And this is basically the maximum these waves could get based on our wind conditions that are going to be developing over the westernmost far western Atlantic basin into the southeast. And so over the next 60 hours, actually, let's back this out so you can see there's your front. So surf is not really going to be an issue, but watch what happens. See this? This wind field picks up. And so your maximum wave height here is about 10 feet along the Carolina coast. And then it even gets close here to 17 feet. So some breakers here that could be pretty substantial along Myrtle Beach as well as Wilmington, North Carolina. Even if you are in Cape Hatteras, surf anywhere between 10 to 14 feet here is anticipated, because again, there's going to be a lot of wind, a nice good wind fetch with this subtropical system, helping to bring in those waves along the coast. So if you're going to the beach this weekend, please stay away from the water, okay? We're looking at very dangerous rip currents with this system. Even so, you may or may not see tropical storm winds in your area. I'm not saying it's going to become a hurricane by any means, but again, I have to stress this enough. I'm going to turn myself up here so you really can hear me. Impacts. All right. Say that with me in the live stream, folks. Impacts is far more important than just focusing on one single thing. A lot of people get their heads wrapped in thinking that it's just the wind. That's all I'm focused in on. That's all I care about is the wind. No. Care about the wind, the rain, and the surf and the flooding. All right. More than just one thing. All right. No, this is not going to become a Cat 5 hurricane or a Cat 4 hurricane by any means. No, it's not going to be like that. But it's also not going to be a system where we need to ignore it. Like, okay, it doesn't matter. We're going to ignore this. We're not going to worry about it, because that's pretty foolish. All right. It doesn't matter how strong, how big or small. There's going to be impacts. All right. In fact, I don't know what system it was. But there was, I remember correctly. I'll tell you, just give you a little bit example. Tropical storms could cause as much devastation as a Category 5 hurricane. Yeah, I don't think you guys knew about that, right? And that's just because, again, size, how slow it's moving, how much moisture it's carrying, all matters a whole lot. And this has a lot of moisture to work with and some instability and ascent for a lot of generation of heavy rainfall and some surf, okay? So I wanted to show you all something new here with our ensembles, okay? Who likes ensembles? Raise your hand in the chat, because, yeah, got a Google Weather Lab running today. And what this is going to tell us is what is the likelihood. Let me make sure this is the newest data. Okay, we got the newest data in. The 12Z output came in. So these little dots here, I know these are hard to see. These are blue dots. This is the Google Ensemble. So you got 30 members that are picking this up literally as of right now. Okay, and then as we put this into motion, there's more dots that pick up. So what this is telling us is these members are picking up on the fact that, oh, this system is actually going to exist. This system is actually going to develop into something. All right, and for reference, there is Jacksonville, Florida. Here are little populated cities along the coast, and there is our system. Now, I can tick these other ones. This is our experimental model. So this is the Google AI model that was recently released to the public last month. Then we got our next weather gen. That's the green. We don't have any members that are picking that up at this time. Next, weather next graph, not picking it up. But our ensembles from the Euro are picking this up. So we have the two reliable models so far, the Google AI model and the European Ensemble forecast, picking this up. And there's definitely a strong signal on this. So let's play this into motion here, and you can see how the dots move. So we play this through. This is the European Ensemble, so it really starts at way down here over Florida, because again, depending on what it's showing, where our concentration of area of low pressure is actually going to be, it's all over the place because this is newly formed and developed. So let's play this through and look what happens. Look at all these dots moving around. So there's definitely a signal here from the model that it's going to be impacting here between probably about Savannah, Georgia, all the way up into near Wilmington, North Carolina. If we get the, okay, we don't have the cone, experimental cone out And so these dots give us a range of possible outcomes on where this is going to be impacting. So there's an ellipse right here that I drew up. So right now, looks like South Carolina needs to be watching this pretty closely, even in Georgia as well as North Carolina. And that moves onshore. Okay. And there's all of your dots. Pretty cool, isn't it? Pretty cool to see this. Let's see what our next graph shows, our other ones, if they're picking this up. Let's play this through. So there's some green dots in there. I don't see any purple dots, so. So that means there is definitely a pretty big signal here that really gets my attention. And I thought this would be great to show in a live stream. All right, so now the spaghetti plot here from the European Ensemble forecast, again, pretty similar here. This is the 12Z output. You can see most of these members here do show dark blue colors. So this is about 35 to near 40 miles an hour. There are a couple of tracks here that do bring this to tropical storm intensity onshore of central South Carolina, like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So this is definitely something to take note of. And then it might re-strengthen after that once it moves out into the open waters here of the northwestern Atlantic off the mid-Atlantic coast. But of course, that's not going to be impacting anyone. It's going to be moving offshore. But yeah, this area needs to be watched right here. This ellipse that I circled in. GEFS Ensemble is not as enthused, which is interesting because it likes to hype up things with its convective biased modeling. So in this case, it's not very enthused about this system, although there's a lot of tracks that keep this below tropical storm and tropical depression intensity. But I think this is going to be acquiring at least strong enough winds based on our high-res model like the HRRR and NAM, both picking up on this to become our next potential named storm. So therefore, the GEFS Ensemble is probably a little bit too low at this given time. So let's update the plot here. So this is the latest look at the satellite imagery and sea surface temperatures. And you can see right here, very warm sea surface temperatures where this thing is right now. There's the Gulf Stream right in here. So this patch of water is anywhere between 29 to almost 30 degrees Celsius. That is very warm by all standards, and that's why I'm a bit on the worrisome side that this could develop a little quicker than what our models are showing right now. And that's the whole understanding about this, is that these systems that come off of decaying cold frontal boundaries could surprise us by a lot. Look at Barry, for an example. Remember, like Barry was like, oh, it's like, I don't think it's going to really do much. And then all of a sudden it produces this deep burst of convection and then it manages to intensify. So that is why we watch these things, even so that it's just a 60% chance of tropical development. But that's definitely high. That's not a 5 or 10%. And the NHC is quite confident that this area is going to have genesis taking place. Let's take a look at our 12Z model now here. This is our ensemble probabilistic forecast. And you can see right in here, there is that looks to be, let's see what chances that is, about 85 to 90% chance right here in this orange and red color, indicating that there is very likelihood that this is going to become a tropical depression. I mean, almost certainly we're going to have to be dealing something with that. When we take a look at the chances of tropical storm for winds, so let's go to that. Let's see, tropical storm, right? So this is what it's picking up on. So there is a 25 to 30% chance that this does become a tropical storm off the Georgia and South Carolina coast. So that means there is definitely a chance. It's not that it won't happen, but there is definitely a non-zero opportunity for this thing to briefly become a tropical storm, which would earn its name Chantel or Chantel, something like that. And brings a lot of rainfall. Okay. So I really want to make sure you all are very aware of this. I'm sure all of you are, because it is 4th of July tomorrow, and it's 4th of July weekend this weekend. All right. And a lot of you are going to want to barbecue and have a lot of fun with your family outside. Yeah, you might want to just make sure, monitor the weather, the sky conditions, because yeah, this has my attention. And this happens to be on 4th of July weekend, when a lot of people are going to be out and about barbecuing, playing in jump houses, water slides, that kind of thing. Yeah. And so you really need to take that into consideration, that maybe we may not be able to have a party this 4th of July, and maybe try for next year. If that makes sense. Unless you're very, very confident that no impacts will happen in your area, unless you're well away from the coast, and that's a different story. All right. So, we're going to move on. Now, did I cover everything that I needed to cover, everybody? Did I miss anything with our disturbance? Please let me know in the chat. All right, because look at the full screen here. Let's see if I got full screen. Look at all of the tabs that we have to roll through. So I'm literally halfway through my discussion. And you're probably wondering, like, what more is there to talk about? Well, I want to discuss on what my thoughts for the hurricane season are going forward, because we are in the month of July. See if they up the chances. Yeah, okay. So they'll update this in the next hour. Did I miss anything? Please let me know in chat. Then we will move on. I want to make sure I'm very thorough. I'm detailed here. Actually, you know what? You guys probably didn't even tell me this already. Let's actually look at the deep layer vertical wind shear and the moisture plot, because that's kind of what I wanted to show you all too. As you can see, there is going to be moisture associated with this. Even so, your low pressure is offshore. You can see the plume here. Oops. Right in here, this teal, green, blue color indicates a lot of moisture. Brown colors indicate a lot of drier air. Let's take a look at the upper level winds. And so you can see here, there is divergence with this weak cutoff low that is right here. So you can make that out right in here. The southwesterly flow helping to allow for some ascent and deepening. And here's a weak anticyclonic ridge that the system is within. So this is marginally favorable for development. And you can even see the shear here might even weaken, especially if the low forms more underneath right here. The vertical wind shear could even be lesser than what this is plotting out here. Generally, probably under 20 knots. So, yeah, wind shear and moisture look marginally conducive here for strengthening an organization with that wave, or with that area of low pressure that is developing tonight and tomorrow. All right, so now that I covered that. All right, anything that I forgot? I don't think so. You guys would have let me know. You guys got to speak up. Don't be shy. Don't be shy, please. If you guys are shy, then that's going to be a problem, right? I need you guys to speak up. If I didn't cover anything, or if I forgot something, please let me know. All right, but I think I covered that pretty well. Okay, so now I wanted to give you guys some climatology understanding, or climatology. I think, yeah, a little tongue twister there. Because actually, you know what? We'll get to questions. Let's get to questions before we move on to our next segment. on our system. And then we will move on to climatology aspect. Where are we at? Where are we headed? And, why is July typically a rather quiet month in the tropics? Is Myrtle Beach possible for landfall? Absolutely. Gerald, yes. It wouldn't really matter if there's a landfall or not because, a tropical depression or tropical storm here or subtropical storm or it's going to you're going to have a lot of rainfall, a lot of surf and some coastal flooding and some freshwater flooding as well. Look at the icon. Okay, so I did forget about the icon, didn't I? I don't usually look at the icon unless it's very much necessary because I think looking at too many models for you all may just be like, okay, move on already. Enough with the models, The icon model is showing the same thing, but it is only at 1011 millibars. And then moving beyond that, there is this wave that the icon has been showing, and that's that tropical wave that's coming off of Africa. And it could develop into something in the next 5 days, but only one model is picking that up, and that's the German model picking up on a tropical disturbance here. I'm getting actually very close of Bermuda. That would be tropical storm force winds there. More subtropical look in nature on this particular run. But it's only one model that it is showing, so I'm not too concerned about it right now. All right, so let's actually move on. How about storm surge? So storm surge on this right now for the southeastern coast, anywhere between 1 to 3 feet of storm surge at the very most. When do you expect all the African dust to stop? So that's what I'm going to be talking about in this next segment, CM. Thank you for asking that. What about Eastern North Carolina? So for Eastern North Carolina, you're definitely going to get some strong winds out of this for sure. Definitely some impacts, some heavy rainfall, some gusty winds, maybe again, some high surf is what we're seeing here on the model, especially over Cape Hatteras, these outer wetlands could see up to about 10 to 14 feet of surf. What's up, Heidi? What's up, Cheesy Weather? So, yeah, by the way, we would be on our letter G storm in the Eastern Pacific. So it's been a very busy Eastern Pacific, but don't let that surprise you all because, last year the Eastern Pacific was very dead and it eventually did wake up as we went into, say, August and September. All right, so I don't think there's much questions on this disturbance, which I'm a bit surprised about, but anyways, we'll move on. So I wanted to talk about climatology. Let's put this let's go to there. This show so I can see, you can see my whole screen. So I wanted to talk about climatology, our past hurricane seasons, and where are we at this hurricane season, if that makes sense. All right, because some of you are like, man, it's unusually quiet. Well, we're all caught up in 2020 where that season was very busy, and 2023, that was also a really busy season. But we have to understand that on average, the majority of our hurricanes do not form until late August into September. So we are pretty early still. Very, very, very early. Okay. Just look at Beryl last year. We all thought last year was going to be a hyperactive hurricane season because Beryl was the earliest, most intense Category 5 hurricane that ever formed in the Caribbean so early in the hurricane season. Okay. I mean, late June, we had a Cat 5 because I count its origin time. So it formed in late June. It was technically a Category 5 in early July, but the name you would think about late June it formed in. And so therefore, that was historically early, but that didn't mean that, oh, our season was going to be hyperactive. And it really didn't end up like that at all. It was actually less busy in terms of 2023, but in terms of ACE score, it was actually busier than it was in 2023. So because Beryl, if we did not have Beryl, then forget about it. We would have been pretty inactive as far as our ACE points would probably be somewhere in the 120, 125 range as far as how much ACE points we had. But because we had Beryl, that shot us up there to 161.6. We had 18 named storms that year, and 18 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and 5 major hurricanes. That's so overall. Even so, when we click on this, we had 3 named storms that formed in June. This year we only had 2. That doesn't mean that, oh, this year is not going to be as busy. All right. Usually this window, not always, but typically the middle to the latter part of July can be a quiet period in the Atlantic before we get into August. But even so, we only had 2 named storms in August, Debbie and Ernesto. We all remember that one, right? Then we had Francine and Gordon. But look at how slow September was. But look at also how late into the year we had tropical systems. I mean, gosh, through the middle of November, we had Sarah that had formed, okay? We had Raphael, that was a Category 3 hurricane in early November. So we could have a very backloaded hurricane season this year, just like we had last year. And that's the honest truth here. I think our seasons are getting to be more backloaded overall. We're not seeing as much early formed activity other than 2020 and 2021 were very anomalous years that we had very early season development. But what I focus more in on is ACE points over named storms. Because, well, look at Alberto and Chris. They were very short names, very short-lived systems, but they counted as far as named storms. They did not give us a lot of ACE, probably about a quarter of an ACE each, versus Beryl really took the cake with its ACE points and was one of the longest-lived and longest tracked, one of not the longest, but one of the longest tracked hurricanes to date that early in the season. And so when you stack this all up, overall, our busiest period last year was, in fact, in very late September, okay? Not in very late August and September. So in other words, our season was delayed about 3 weeks last year versus where we should typically be. And yet we were still able to sniff out 18 named storms. And look at what NOAA did predict. They did predict 17 to 24. Actually, hold on. Yeah, they predicted 17 to 25 named storms. A lot of bullish forecasts last year, but sometimes things don't go as planned. And that's a good thing in this sense, because last year could have gave us 31 named storms or 32 named storms, So that is why, in my honest opinion, we got to think about this and be like, okay, just because it's slow now doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. Who knows? It could be like 2014 where we have 8 named storms, I don't think that's going to happen, though. I just don't think so. Our Atlantic is warm enough to support at least more than 10 named storms. Okay. Let's go and look at 2022. We only had 95 ACE points, but 16 named storms, because if we look down here, look how dead that season was. But look at, out of the entire season, these 3 months being very inactive, literally, and we all thought, man, this season's not going to be a busy one at all. Look at September. We were still able to get a Cat 4, Cat 5 hurricane, 2 major hurricanes. And look at that. Ian was the hurricane that impacted near Tampa Bay, Florida. It only takes one, folks. It really does. It does. You don't need 31 named storms to get a historic worst season ever on record. In fact, that season was more costly than 2023. Even so, we had lesser named storms and lesser ACE. See, now it all adds up, doesn't it? All right, let's look at other seasons here really quickly, then we got to move on. Here's a good season, 2018. Click on that season. You know, this was more spread apart, but look at nothing formed in June. We only had 2 named storms in July. Okay, so July, generally speaking, shouldn't be very active. August, usually the second half of August, but usually September overall is always busy. 2019, let's look at 2019. Look at this. June, no development. We only had 1 named storm in July. And look at Barry. So let's see. Well, we had Barry already. So Chantel would be formed a little earlier or a lot earlier. Instead of August, it would possibly be able to develop in very early July, meaning that we have a long way to go. We could see a season like this where we wait until very late August and into September to get a lot of named storms. And look at that. We went up to the letter S storm. Out of that whole time, 18 named storms, and the majority of them formed beyond late August. Not much activity early on, okay? So that's why we got to really watch this stuff. Let's move on, because I'm probably boring the crap out of you all. So looking now at the Atlantic hurricane and tropical storm activity, climatology, this is where we're at. On this given day, since 1944, there have been only 10 named storms and 2 hurricanes that have formed during that period on this very day, meaning this part of the hurricane season is technically very slow, just like it is in early June. All right, so we really didn't get that ramp up in the hurricane season just yet. And again, it's not going to be until we get into the middle to the latter part of August when that really happens. So again, this is where we're at now. As of July 3rd, we're right here. This is the annotation that I drew up. We have a long way to go. A long way to go before we get to the very top. Okay? And that means September historically is a very busy month. It really is. All right, so where are we at as far as sea surface temperature anomalies? And this is basically from climate another tongue twister word. But you get the idea of what we're looking at here. And so when we put this, when we kind of highlight for July 2nd, we're running overall in the North Atlantic about a half a degree warmer than we should be for this time of the year. We're not as warm as what we were last year, okay? And I think water temperatures being as warm as they were last year was probably the issue on why we had a lot of stability problems in the atmosphere, in the troposphere. So maybe it being too hot, maybe it being too warm is not what you need for a busy season. Okay? And that's still to be decided on. Why are some seasons very busy despite water temperatures not being as warm as if they were warmer, you know? There's a lot of scientific research being done about that, especially from last year. And so we are warmer than we should be for this time of the year. And going back to 1982 to 2010 average, we are 0.6 of a degree above average. So we're definitely up there, okay? And we're only slightly cooler from 2023 and 2024, which were both our warmest years ever on record. You got to keep that in mind. And we are still ahead here from our warmest echelons of 2022. We're ahead of 2022, actually. And let's see if 2020 is even up here. Yeah, look at this. We're even ahead of 2020 as far as the warmth in the North Atlantic. You can see right there, I've highlighted that. Okay, so we're on par. We are literally on par. Even so, parts of the Atlantic may have cooled a little bit. Okay, let's look at the Atlantic MDR region. Yeah, we're definitely above average for that, about 0.2 of a degree above where we should be. And the Gulf of Mexico, we have cooled it down quite significantly. Before, we were way up there as far as how warm our sea surface temperatures were. Oh, I mean, at one point, we were as much as a degree, 1.1 degrees warmer than we should be for this time of the year. But now that has come down a lot to 0.27 degrees Celsius above the long-term average. But of course, this is definitely going to warm up a lot further. It's not going to continue to cool. And usually on average, the warmest it gets is usually in the mid to latter part of August when the Gulf is at its warmest. So we have a long way to go as far as where we're at here. So now looking at the entire globe here, and we're looking at past busy hurricane seasons that gave us at least more than 15 named storms or even 16 named storms perhaps, all right? And I want to make it clear here, 14 named storms is an average hurricane season now, not 12 like we had, like, say, 10 years ago. 14, okay? So in 1998, this is what we had, and this gave us a fairly busy hurricane season. In fact, if we look at that year, go back, 1998, that gave us 14 named storms. So that was a very impactful hurricane season with a lot of hurricanes, a few major hurricanes. In fact, there was 10 hurricanes and 3 majors. So that was about an average to, well, in ACE points, it was a very, very busy hurricane season. In terms of named storms, it was near average. Okay. But look at the sea surface temperatures. Okay. You don't need significantly warm sea surface temperatures in the MDR to kickstart the tropics into hyperactive mode. You really don't. All you need is warm enough sea surface temperatures, and the background state needs to cooperate for things to line up. 2005 was also a very busy hurricane season. And look at just a testimony here of what you're looking at. Look at, we had an Atlantic Nina. In fact, some of these anomalies right here were as much as 3 degrees below average in the long term. Okay. And again, on this very day, well, this is, tomorrow's the 4th of July, but this gives us a good representation. I mean, 20 years ago, this is what sea surface temperatures looked like on this very day. Below average here, above average over here. We did not have a La Nina or El Nino. We had neutral conditions, a weak negative PMM, Pacific Meridional mode, in place. All right. And even the Mediterranean Sea was near average for that time of the year. Okay. And guess what? That gave us one of the busiest hurricane seasons in modern records ever recorded. Actually is the second most active hurricane season as far as named storms before 2020 came around. And that season, 2020, stands the cake as being the most hyperactive Atlantic hurricane season ever recorded on the face of the planet in the Atlantic, with 31 systems that had formed. Okay. And so let's take a look at that, and let's compare that to 2024. So this is 2005. This is 2024. And my theory is, this is my theory on why last year's hurricane season did not perform the way we all thought it would perform. So first of all, this was very warm up here. Okay. So a lot of heating, a lot of energy was dispersed northward. The Mediterranean Sea was exceptionally warm, at like unprecedented warmth that happened in the Mediterranean Sea. We also had, let's see here. We also just had, over here was also very warm. So that affected and also India, very warm Indian Ocean, which might have had a negative impact on where the intertropical convergence zone did set up overall, especially in August and September, which is why our season did not end up. And also this patch of cooler water caused a lot of issues. This was about a degree below average in the long term. And so that might have played a huge role in why our season kind of busted in a way as far as the number of named storms. People were predicting, like, there was one agency that was predicting almost 40 named storms. That was, and so this gives us a reminder that just because we have sea surface temperatures that are like this in the MDR will not necessarily give us hyperactive seasons. Not always. All right. And this is 2020. So you can see the difference that it makes. Okay. I believe the Indian Ocean being a little cooler in 2020, the Mediterranean Sea being even cooler, might have been all part in why the season did what it needed to do. Also, the North Pacific played a role in all of that. Our global oceans can interact with one another and change overall atmospheric circulations in a way to where it could have a huge impact, profound impact on the Atlantic hurricane season. Okay. And so, I mean, if this gave us 20 names or 31 named storms, okay, I'm circling that in black, what is this going to give us? This is 2025. This is 2020, 2025, 2020, 2025, 2020, and 2025. What it seems to be is very warm up here, very warm in the Mediterranean Sea. In fact, some parts of the Mediterranean Sea are running 5 to 7 degrees above average. All-time record high sea surface temperatures up there in the Mediterranean Sea as of date. The MDR is re-warming up. We have a weak Atlantic Nina that's in place, so that might have some implications this year. But also, to cover our backup, we have a really cold phase of the Pacific Meridional Mode, the PMM, that is in place surrounding otherwise a neutral-like ENSO that is out there. This might have a negative impact over here is how warm the sea surface temperatures are in the Western Pacific and the Northwestern, where they are running at all-time highs. That is why there's a mixed signal now on whether or not will we see an above average hurricane season or will we see a below average one. It's very, very hard to say right now, but my gut feeling is we are going to probably have a average hurricane season with anywhere between 10 to 15 named storms. I would actually up that because we did have 2 named storms and we might have a third one here. So probably about 11 to 16 named storms is what I'm going with right now. This is not my official numbers right now. Those are not going to be out until probably the middle of July, of course, because I want to wait for more data to come in and see what sea surface temperatures will actually do down here. But it is pretty amazing to see, though, that between, let's go to here, between last year and this year, the deep tropics here of the Atlantic are much cooler than they were just 2 years ago. Last year, I meant, sorry, got that wrong. Last year, we were running about 2 degrees above average. This year, we're running barely a half a degree above normal here in the MDR. So big contrast from just 365 days ago. All right, so closer in, this is what it looked like in 1998. Again, busy seasons, 1998, 2005, 2024. Well, these two are very busy seasons. And this was a busy season. So I'm very curious, again, what this season is going to do. The fact that we have cooler than normal sea surface temperatures up here that are spreading this general direction, and this warmer patch may be able to get yanked down further south along the Canary Current and the Iberian Peninsula. I do think right now it's a mixed signal, but if we can change the sea surface temperature configuration here into more of a favorable one, I think that might be enough to overturn for a possible pretty busy hurricane season. But right now, there is some mixed signals on that. All right. Now, last but not least, is there any activity coming in the Atlantic anytime soon? Well, we do have a little bit of upward motion here over Africa for the middle of July. That is why I'm thinking that we might see some robust tropical wave activity off of Africa, and some of those might be able to be strong enough to cling on to possible tropical cyclone genesis in the middle of July. And then we might, looks like an inactive period comes back around where there's a lot of suppression by the end of July. By the time we go for the early part of our early August into the middle of August, things should open up a lot more in the Atlantic. But of course, this is very far out in time. This is over a month out, and we know how that goes. Things could change very quickly out there in the deep tropics. And as far as it looks right now, there is no signs of any MJO activity, Madden-Julian oscillation, and it's really dominated by a lot of convective coupled Kelvin wave activity. All these blue lines here going at an angle show us where there's a lot of localized forcing in the tropics. And the next opportunity here for the Atlantic is going to be around the middle of July, where we get some localized tropical uplift in the atmosphere. And even over here by the very end of July. So we'll just have to see on how this pans out, but maybe a brief window of opportunity here by the middle of July. All right. Wow, man, that was a long bit of discussion. That's an hour long there I just wasted. Do you guys have any questions at all? I want to answer you guys' questions. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. I know a lot of you are away doing a lot of 4th of July stuff. That is why tomorrow I am not going to have an upload out. I am going to take the day off tomorrow and probably on Saturday just because of the holiday weekend. And I should be back sometime next week. Actually, you know what? No, my brain's all tangled up. Maybe tomorrow. We'll see about tomorrow just because I will be busy for 4th of July because that area, we need to watch that area closely. We do. What are the current temps in the Gulf right now? Let's actually go over to that. So our current sea surface temperatures right now in the Gulf are, right now, the northern Gulf right now running at about 31.5 degrees Celsius. So that is about 86 to 88 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly. The entire Gulf right now is open up for business. I mean, we are more than favorable for the Gulf right now for tropical activity. I know it's not wasted. I know. Cheesy, no. Yeah, Atlantic is dead this year. Well, again, I do not want you guys... I've seen a lot of this on social media, even on X, that people are already starting to say this hurricane season's not going to wake up at all. It's going to be a dead season. Please, please, please refrain from saying that, all right? Let's start saying that once we get into the middle to the latter part of September. If we still don't have any activity by the end of September, then we can kind of say that this is going to be a dead season. It's only July the 3rd, people. It's only the 3rd of July. Tomorrow's July 4th. Okay, and we have a long way to go. I just showed you all just how busy seasons could be if they start really late. 2012, let's look at 2012. 2012 was more spread out evenly, but look at the majority of the activity formed in late August and September. Let's take a look here at 2011. 2011, You had all these named storms, but really the production didn't get going until late August into September. Okay. Let's take a look at one more season, 2010. Let's look at 2010. So June, only one named storm. Only one named storm formed in July. August, that's when the activity picked up, and it was really in September. We have to understand, it's not August, it's not September, it's only July, people. It's only July. The reason why the Mediterranean Sea is very hot this year is just because there has not been a lot of mixing of the ocean. The winds have been very light in that area for a while. So that is why the Mediterranean Sea is so hot. You know what? I just decided I'll probably, if I'm in the mood for it, I'll probably upload it in the morning tomorrow, very early, like at 3 in the morning. So I can just get a video out. So that way I can have the rest of 4th of July to myself. None of you guys have questions. I thought this little system right here would interest you guys a lot more, which is scary because if people are not interested in this little tropical disturbance, that is a problem, and we got to sound the alarm on that one. Pretty formation off of Africa. That's not formation. That's just part of the West African monsoon gyre. Brady, the Saharan dust usually goes away in late, about early to mid-August. Sometimes in late July. See what our latest GFS is showing. Yeah, these trade winds are definitely weaker, way weaker than they were before. Yeah, so here's something though. Look at what the GFS shows here. Off that same frontal boundary. Oops. Maybe something on that model. Maybe something. That's pretty far out though. It could be subtropical for sure, yes. Why was 2013 so quiet? Let's see, 2013. That was actually an above average season. You mean 2014? 2014, let's look at why 2014 was so quiet. We go here. Let's go. Yeah, let's go to... There we go. So let's look at this. Actually, you know what? No, this is the wrong one. Hold on. It's 2014. So first of all, 2014 was... So 2014 was more than likely dead because of the development of an El Nino and the circulation and everything. That's why I believe 2014 was a very inactive season. It's kind of like this. You got to play the guessing game, you know, regardless of sea surface temperatures, and we just will find out, right? We will find out all together if this season's going to be busy or not. Forecasts are just guidance. They are not like that's actually what's going to happen. They do pretty good. They do a great job at being as accurate as possible, but it's just sometimes they can't get everything right. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to learn together. This is kind of like a whole family learning process. Will this season wake up, or will it be an average season? That is true, yeah. 2 is out. What do you mean 2 is out? Tropical Depression 2? No, it would be Tropical Depression 3, and it would be PTC 3. Right? There's no way we have a PTC right now. Well, actually, it could be if they have a high enough confidence. But I'm waiting for the next update here in 15 minutes. We'll still be here until the next update with what they show on their end. Oh, no, they just updated it. 4060 now. So, wow, they got that out early. Yeah, they got that out early. So it's up to still 60%. So it's a 40-60 still. So they did not up the 7-day chances to 70% yet. Tropical weather outlook. Disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions are forecast to become more conducive for development in a tropical. I don't know where you see 2 at. Oh, probably this. Probably the weather outlook. Oh, 2 as in tropical weather outlook. Okay. Okay. You confused me there for a second. I was like, what do you mean by 2? Tropical weather outlook. Yeah, so it's still at 60. What's this one over here? 80%. So they're still holding that. Goodbye, Philosophy. It was nice knowing you. And then we have another one out here. This is going to be Gil. 100% that's going to be our next named storm in the Eastern Pacific. The train continues. What's up, Jack? What's up? So, wow, we got that out early. Earlier, better than late than never, right? Before I do go, for those people that are watching, I just want to make a friendly promotion announcement here that when there's a hurricane or a tropical storm, and I've done this in every one of my videos, every time there's a landfall or a forecasted landfall within 24 hours of a given point in the United States. Okay, this only applies to the United States because this is where we have the resources, the cameras. The next year, we're going to try upgrading that system a little bit more, but just for the United States, all the way from Texas, all the way into Florida, all the way up the eastern seaboard into Nova Scotia. Okay. is if there's a landfall within 24 hours of a given location that is forecasted, we live stream. This is the first year we're going to propose this for you all. So let's just say a hurricane is going to make landfall at 5 p.m. on July 4th. We would be getting ready for that live stream right now in about 12 minutes. And we would be going live all the rest of the day, all night. So we'd be streaming overnight into the day tomorrow. And if it's intense enough and highly impactful enough, we will even be streaming up to 6 to 7 or even 8 hours after a landfall. So imagining this, okay, let's try. Let's just do a little bit of example, because again, I do want to promote this out for you all, because I'm sure you all are excited and be like, yeah, I need to see tropical development. So let's just say a hurricane makes landfall over here in Pensacola. It's 24 hours away from striking that area. We would be live streaming, depending on, again, the impactfulness of it, all the way up until it got to like right here, like 6 hours. So we would be streaming the landfalling area as it worked its way onshore, if that makes sense. Okay. I cannot wait to do this. I am very, very excited because, believe it or not, it's kind of like playing hide and seek. Believe it or not, ready or not, here I come. We are going to have a lot of cameras. We are going to have at least a minimum of 15 cameras, 15 live streaming cameras of storm surge, of wind damage, high surf, whatever you want to think about, heavy rainfall, power outages, power flashes, and everything. We will have live recon data, live satellite images, live radar images, live surface observations. Holy freaking moly. If you thought going live on Milton and Beryl last year was detailed enough, we are upping the studio. We are upping the studio. And that is why we have 5 computer monitors here in the studio. Also live storm chasers, that I cannot guarantee, because I might work something out, but I will have to pay these storm chasers, and I don't know if I have the budget for that, if I have the finance, enough money for that this hurricane season, because it costs at least $100 per live storm chaser. And if I have like 3 or 4 live storm chasers, that's like $400 or $500 per live stream. So I don't know if that's going to work out this year, but maybe next year. But for sure, please pinky promise and rest assure me, folks. Hold me up to against my will. Okay. Pinky promise that we are going to have a lot of live cameras, a ton. Okay, a ton. It's just a matter of, well, when is it going to get active? That's what we're all waiting for here, sitting on the chair waiting for it to get busy. It's a good thing that it's not, well, busy in the sense that, yeah, there's an area to watch, but overall pretty quiet out there in the subtropics. The fires are raging out of control in Southern California. What the heck? More fires? Literally, are you serious? There's more fires down there, huh? There is a fire, but I would say that's in Southern California, right? Oh my gosh, yeah. There's definitely a fire there. Yeah, I can see what you mean. Only one fire, though. Made fire at 52,000 acres right now. Madre fire? Holy moly. Look up fires on Cal Fire. I go to watch duty. I don't use... I go to watch duty and look... Wait, what? Oh, yeah. I can use a web browser. I better use a web browser. Let's see. Is that what this is? The made 52,000 acres. Oh my gosh. That is 5% contained. And there is some pretty decent winds too with that. So that is not a good sign. That is not a good sign. We're not, and so it is 5% contained. That is pretty unfortunate. So yeah, any questions, anybody? I don't think you guys have much questions because there's really not much to track other than that disturbance. But I do think we are probably going to get our third named storm of the hurricane season. And I want to make it clear, that's a lot of named storms. That is a lot of named storms. And you might be like, 3 named storms is a lot? What are you? No. Relative to where we're at, it is a lot of named storms. Because look at this really quickly. I wanted to show you all this. I wanted to show you all this. Rest assured you, take a long look at this. You can see this for yourself. You can see this for yourself. But look at right here. So our third named storm doesn't typically form until August 3rd. If we can get Chantel out of this in the next 3 or 4 days, we are well ahead of schedule. That means our D-named storm doesn't form until mid-August. So that means we are more than a month ahead of schedule. And our first average hurricane does not form until August 11th. And our major hurricanes, the first major hurricane doesn't form until September 1st. Okay. So that goes to show you that we have a long way to go. We do. No, the NHC did update already, and this is what they have out right now. So they are going to send recon aircraft out into that if necessary tomorrow. So, yeah. Awari Rama, yes. Less winds will warm the oceans up over time. That is correct. All right. I think that's going to do it because it's been about an hour and a half, and I think I covered everything. No one has questions unless you guys want to sneak in any questions. But otherwise, please subscribe to the channel, folks. I am very, very excited. And yeah, I'm very excited to track this hurricane season with you all once it gets very active. Once the season wakes up, we're going to be all over this. We're going to be on top of the tropics like nothing else. Nothing else at all. But again, share, like, and subscribe. Share this with your family and friends. Let them know about my YouTube channel. Because if you don't share it, then they're not going to get the latest information. It's that simple. So make sure you do subscribe, share, and like. Ring the bell icon if you haven't already. And then, of course, we will keep you updated here on the YouTube channel. We only have 82 likes in this live stream, so please like that video stream after it's done. All right. I think that's about it. I think I don't have much more to cover. I have one question. Are you going to have someone on to help you during your live streams? Yes. Easy is going to help me on my live stream. Maybe Ethan B. I just don't know what his schedule is going to be like. But yeah, I'm only going to have 2 people helping me at the most. It's only going to be Easy Peasy. That's his name on YouTube, and Ethan B. Those 2 people. Maybe Dustin the Now. He has recently reached out to me actually. That he may want to help me out too. So we'll see about that. But I'm keeping it limited to about 2 or 3 people to helping me during the hurricane season on a live stream, especially when we do the 24-hour live streams leading up to a landfall. I will need some extra help on that. And then lastly, I do have merchandise. If you guys want to check that out, it is on my YouTube channel. Yeah, a lot of you are definitely busy. I can tell not as many people joined this live stream. Only had a peak of about 100 people, and that's just because everyone was out celebrating the pre-4th of July, and I understand that. That's why I don't think tomorrow, maybe tomorrow I will have something out, but I just might take a 3-day weekend to allow everybody to enjoy the 4th of July fireworks, barbecues, and stuff. And then we'll continuously be talking about this system as long as it remains a threat. If this actually gets upgraded to a 70% chance or higher, then we'll probably be making a video on this tomorrow. All right. All right. But anyways, you guys, I am going to head out, I think. Have a great 4th of July, folks, and I might be back here early tomorrow morning at about 6 or 7 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time in the morning for a video just before people get their days started. They could actually check out the video, see what the tropics are looking like, and then go about their day. But anyways, have a great rest of your day, folks. Share, like, and subscribe, and I'll be back with you more maybe tomorrow, if not on Monday next week.